Come, let us fix our eyes on Jesus. This is Unpopular Theology, Episode 11. Today we're going to be dealing with an Instagram post from John Steingaard announcing that he is no longer a Christian. Before we get started, go ahead, hit the like button, go ahead and subscribe, go over to our Facebook page, like us over there. We post new content there every Monday through Friday, including the Christian news on Tuesdays. Proclaiming and defending the faith, this is Unpopular Theology. So before we get into the response, we need to say who John Steingaard is. So he is the lead singer for Hawk Nelson, which is a Christian rock band. I don't know much about him or the band. I've definitely heard their music, but I don't really listen to contemporary Christian music that much anymore. So I could tell you that they are a Christian band, but I can't really tell you much else about them. Last month, he made, in a lengthy Instagram post, he announced that he no longer considers himself a Christian, and I'm going to be responding to that Instagram post. It's going to be answering some of his questions. It's also going to be kind of diagnosing some of the things that led him away from the faith. So let's go with the first thing. It's diagnosing a problem, and it's what I'll call emotionalism. And he specifically mentioned he had trouble praying in public. And first of all, I'm going to say this a lot. That is awful that he had trouble doing that and that he felt so much angst because of that. And I think the thing is that this is partly because a lot of evangelicals like to make a show out of their prayer, which is not a good thing. And it shows why we have the Lord's Prayer, why we have other prayers that we memorize. It's to tell us, what to pray, how to pray, and sometimes it sounds high and lofty like some of the collects of the day in the Lutheran Church. Other times it's like the Lord's Prayer, things like give us this day our daily bread. So I really feel bad for him there, because prayer shouldn't be something that is awkward in public. It should be something that comes naturally. The next one he mentioned was when he was at a youth conference, he was asked to sign a Date Jesus pledge. I'm not familiar with this concept. Again, this is awful. It sounds a lot like manipulation, and it also sounds like it's making a law out of something that isn't commanded or forbidden. Adiaphora is the term we use. So if you are in a dating relationship, you're not sinning. If you're not in a dating relationship, you're not sinning. But these people seem to think that if the youth was in a dating relationship at that time, they were sinning. So that's awful. I'm very upset about that. That shouldn't be happening in the Christian church. Next, he had problems with free will / the problem of evil. He wondered, why is there bad in the world? Is it because humans sinned and we just messed it up for everyone? Which the answer to that question is yes. And the thing is that we do have free will. Yes, in fact, because we have free will, we sinned. So in a way, we have free will, but we also have bondage of the will to do nothing but sin. Problem of evil is all wrapped up in free will. We have free will not because God wanted it to happen. On the contrary, He didn't want it to happen, but we were given free will and we chose to disobey God. And while it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense that a sovereign God could allow that to happen, and we will talk about the problem of evil in a different episode very shortly, we need to know that this is a real question. This is a question that a lot of people struggle with, and so we as a church need to know how to answer this question. Next, he had problems with a loving God sending people to hell. To quote C.S. Lewis, God doesn't send people to hell. He merely seconds the motion. And so what that means is that when God sends someone to hell, it's not because he wants to. It's because they wanted to go to hell. They wanted separation from him. And yes, that is an awful thought, but you gotta understand, we are so corrupt that we cannot choose God. And by gratifying the flesh, the person decided that they wanted to serve Satan and not serve God. So, in other words, God is giving them what they wanted in the first place, complete and total separation from him. He also talked about in the Bible how God would command the people of Israel to go and kill off entire villages. So yes, it does sound awful. And so we need to make a distinction between killing and murder. Murder is the unauthorized, unlawful taking of another person's life. When God does killing, because he is the author of life, he has the authority to take away that life. And so when he orders the people of Israel to do that, he is not breaking the law, and he has complete and total authority to do that. It's a tough thing to understand, but we also need to understand that God wanted the land to be cleansed so that his people, Israel, would be a chosen and clean people. So while it sounds awful, and by our standards it is, God had a purpose for that, and that was to maintain his people. He also had a problem with Christ having to die on the cross for our sins. This is what we in theological circles, or I should say people in theological circles, I don't think I'm quite in a theological circle yet, as in yakking it up with big names. They call this the substitutionary atonement. And the thing is that the wages of sin is death. That's from Romans 6. Death enters the world through one man, and the only way to solve death is by one man dying for our sins. So the idea of penal substitutionary atonement's another name for it, is that Christ dies in our place on the cross. We deserve that punishment, but Christ takes it. No other human being can take it, because no other human being is righteous enough or is perfect enough to take that sin. Only Christ can do that. And so I think C.S. Lewis put it best when he said, not only does it make it easier for Christ to take our sins, it makes it possible. If a sinner dies on the cross, he could maybe pay for his sins, but not totally. He can't pay for anyone else's, though. Only Christ can take our sins on that cross. So now, for the last point he brought up that he felt like he wasn't enthusiastic enough. And again, this is sad. It is sad, and it is proof that if you base your faith off feelings, your faith will collapse at some point. Because wisdom and knowledge, some of the basic things that never change. Feelings are temporary. They move around all the time. And so it is sad when a person bases their faith off of emotionalism, how the faith crumbles. They build their house on sand. But if you build it on the rock of Christ and his word, it will stand. And so I'm awfully sad about that. So I do have a personal plea to John, if he is watching. I don't know if he is. My guess is he wouldn't be. But if he does ever get around to this video, I have a suggestion. Try the Lutheran Church. He said he was open to Christianity being real, but try the Lutheran Church. We train our pastors to answer questions. We are willing to answer those questions. We may not have all the answers, but we do have basic ideas of the answers that can help you out. And then we lack emotionalism. If you find a good Lutheran church, you're not gonna find emotionalism. You'll find the same thing every week. And yeah, it may sound boring at first, but there's great comfort in the rhythm of the liturgy, in confession of sins, in the absolution given by the pastor, in the law and gospel preached from the pulpit by the pastor, and in the sacrament where Christ himself comes to us in his very body and blood through, in, with, and under the bread and the wine. And just for anyone else out there who may be struggling with their faith, if you are, talk to somebody about it. Talk to your pastor. Talk to someone you know has a lot of more theological knowledge than you. And just keep in mind that just because a celebrity walks away from the faith doesn't mean you have to. Well, that pretty much wraps it up for this week. Next week, more discouragement and downers. We're going to be talking about the prophet of Jeremiah, who is known as the weeping prophet. Till then, keep your eyes fixed on Jesus.